Hi guys, it's Mr. Tristan, and today's video is going to be very different. Some of you may remember from my older videos that I am a huge fan of Survivor. As you can see, I'm wearing a Survivor type shirt here. And to celebrate Survivor's 50th season, that's right, season 50, I decided to do a video where I talk about the cast from Survivor 50. So I will be talking about each player, like the seasons that they've played, how I felt about them playing the game, and how excited I am to be on season 50. I will be going in chronological order by season, and for any seasons that have multiple people from 50, I'll just go like in order of their placement. So we're going to start off with going all the way back to season 1 with Jenna. Now, this is Jenna's third time playing Survivor. The last time she played was Survivor All-Stars, which was back in 2004. That means it's been over 20 years since Jenna played Survivor. And back then, there were no hidden immunity idols, there were no types of advantages, and the only twist that she was a part of was the tribe swap. So I don't know how Jenna is going to do with this next level of game. However, I loved Jenna when she played before, and I am very excited to see her compete on season 50. In fact, if Jenna were to win this season, it would be truly monumental. To have someone from season 1 win Survivor 50, wouldn't that be something? Anyway, moving on, we're going to go to season 2, Australian Outback, with everyone's favorite cowboy from Texas, Colby Donaldson. Now, this is Colby's fourth time playing Survivor. The last time he played was Heroes vs. Villains, which is ironically the first season I've ever watched. So Colby has been put through the ringer the previous times he played. In Australia, he was the ultimate challenge beast. He was the original record holder for most individual immunity wins by a man. He made it to the end, lost by 1 vote, because he took Tina to the end. Survivor All-Stars, he got voted out pretty early because of the fact that he's a good player. And Heroes vs. Villains, he performed pretty terribly at challenges. Although he did have a few good moments, he just was not so good and ended up getting 5th. So with Colby coming back after 16 years, I'm very excited to watch him play, and I really hope he makes it far. Also, fun fact, this is Colby's first time playing Survivor without Jerry, which is crazy, because Colby and Jerry always played together. So the fact that Colby is playing without her, it's insane. I think Jerry was supposed to be on season 50, and for some reason, they just cut her out. I don't understand that. So now we're going to go all the way to season 10 with Stephanie. So just like Colby, this is Stephanie's fourth time playing Survivor, and the last time she played was Heroes vs. Villains, where she got voted out pretty early. So in Survivor Palau, Stephanie had pretty much one of the worst runs in Survivor. Her original tribe, Oolong, was pretty terrible. Like, they lost every single immunity challenge. I mean, they've won a few reward challenges, but every immunity challenge, they just lost. And they just kept going out one by one by one by one until Stephanie was the last one left. Also, speaking of Oolong, right behind me right here, this is a signed Oolong buff that I got as a gift from someone, but that's another story. If you want to know about that, I'll do a video where I talk about that. So yeah, because Stephanie was the only one left, Palau did not have a merge. Instead, they absorbed her into the Koror tribe, where she eventually placed 7th. Stephanie came back the next season, Guatemala, where she played a much different game, got all the way to the end, but only got 1 vote to win. And then Stephanie came back for Heroes vs. Villains, where she had her shoulder dislocated, and she got into an argument with James, and ultimately became the 2nd person voted out. Recently, though, Stephanie was on other shows. I believe she was in Snake in the Grass, and she also did The Traitors. Safe to say that she did manage to get a few shows in before she came back for 50, so it hasn't been 16 years since people have seen her on a show. I love Stephanie, and I cannot wait to see how she does. And now we're going to go to season 12, Exile Island, with the one and only Cirie Fields. So this is Cirie's 5th time playing Survivor, well, 6 if you include Australia versus the world, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the US Survivor. Cirie is known as the woman who famously got up off the couch to play Survivor. Her first season, Exile Island, she had a little bit of a struggle in the beginning, but managed to find herself in an alliance that got her all the way to the final 4. Then she came back for Fans vs. Favorites, where she aligned herself with Amanda and Parvati, the Black Widow Brigade, got all the way to the final 3 before she got voted out. Then Heroes vs. Villains, she got voted out pretty early because of the fact that she is seen as a huge threat. And then she came back for Game Changers, where she didn't have a single vote cast against her, and she ended up getting eliminated due to everybody else playing an advantage that would save them. And Cirie's the only one that didn't even have any sort of advantage, and her name didn't get written down a single time. So that was pretty sad. So I'm glad that Cirie is actually getting another chance to play Survivor. Also, as I mentioned, outside of like the US Survivor, she wanted to do Australia versus the world, which I heard she did very well. She also was on The Traitors, which she won. And she also was on Big Brother with her son Jared. That was amazing. She is going through the ringer in shows. Also, I'd just like to state a fun fact. Cirie has basically made it to the finale every single season she's played, except for one, which was Heroes vs. Villains. But yeah, that just shows how good of a player she is. But Cirie's not the only one playing Survivor for the 5th time, coming into 50, as we go to the next season, Cook Islands, with Ozzy. Now, normally I talk about how excited I am for players. Ozzy's the first person that I have to say I'm not really a fan of. I've watched Ozzy seasons and he just comes across as very entitled and arrogant, and stuff like that I just am not a fan of. But despite that, I will say Ozzy has played great games. He proved to be very dominant when he won 5 individual immunity challenges in Cook Islands, and also when he came back from Redemption Island twice in South Pacific. He also played Fans vs. Favorites and Game Changers along with Cirie, and coincidentally, both times he was the second jury member. So I don't know how Ozzy is going to do in Survivor 50, but I think if Ozzy were to be able to improve his social game and his strategic game, and maybe not put himself out there too much when it comes to like challenges or like fishing and stuff like that, I think he might be okay. And now we're going to season 18, Tocantins, with Coach. Now I know there's some people who are not fans of Coach. I am. I love Coach. He is hilarious. Just the types of stories that he tells, all the stuff that he talks about, to some people, it's kind of silly and ridiculous. I just view it as entertaining. And I cannot believe that Coach is coming back for his 4th time. Coach started out in Tocantins, where he's like seen as like this wacko dragon slayer. I love that nickname, by the way. The Dragon Slayer. That's really good. Coach came back for Heroes vs. Villains, where he was somewhat the same, except he only became like the first juror. Then he went on to South Pacific, where I guess you could say he played more of a strategic game. However, the jury was not really a fan of his gameplay, and he only got 2nd place, losing to Sophie. And I thought Coach was never going to play Survivor again because he said so. But the fact that I think he came back for 50 because of the fact that it's a milestone season, and I'm glad he's coming back. Do I think he's going to go far? I don't know. We'll have to see. And now we're going to have a big jump all the way to season 32, Kaoh Rong, with Aubrey. Now, I like Aubrey. I mean, I consider myself to be kind of like a male version of Aubrey. You know, like I wear glasses, which I'm not wearing mine right now. I could be a little weird. That much is true. And Aubrey kind of struggled a little bit when she first played, but eventually she was able to turn her game around, you know, play strategically, win challenges. She got all the way to the end, but only placing 2nd, losing to Michelle. Aubrey then came back for Game Changers, where she did, in my opinion, a little bit better, but she ended up placing 5th, despite the fact that she was on the outs for part of the game. And then she went on to Edge of Extinction, where her game completely fell apart. On one hand, she found an idol and she had another advantage, but Aubrey ended up getting voted out with both of them. She had two opportunities to win her way back in the game, and unfortunately, she just couldn't get it. So now Aubrey's coming back for her fourth time. Do I think she can win? No. But I do think she can make it far if she plays her cards right. And now we're going to go to 35, Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers with Chrissy. So Chrissy is known as being one of the record holders for most individual immunity wins by a woman with 4. I will say Chrissy played a great game. I mean, I was not really a fan of her based on like her attitude, but I will say Chrissy, I mean, the first episode, after losing the first immunity challenge, she ended up getting sick and threw up a bit, which made me think that she wasn't even going to make it far, and she proved me wrong. So despite how I felt about her at the time, Chrissy played a phenomenal game. And the fact that she got to second after having a bit of a rough start, that's impressive. Do I think Chrissy could win? I don't know. Only time will tell. And now we're going to go to what's next. 37, which is David versus Goliath, where we have three people coming from this season into 50. So we're going to start off with the lower placement, which is Christian. Now, can I just say I love Christian? I think if I had to compare myself to anybody from 50, I think it might be Christian, because of the fact that, Christian tends to talk a lot, I tend to talk a lot, but the difference between me and Christian is Christian, I think of Christian as kind of like a hybrid of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory because of his scientific talk. Plus, Christian was seen as a huge threat given his smaller stature. There were times where Christian could have been voted out, but yet he was saved by an idol, either from an idol he had or an idol that someone else played for him, like Davey. Even his own ally, Gabby, tried to vote him out, but he saved himself. Unfortunately, he could not save himself the next time, and he ended up getting voted out. Now, I'm very excited to see Christian play, and I really hope he makes it far. And then we're going to go to the third placer in David and Goliath, Angelina. Now, I know there's some people who are fans of Angelina. I personally was not. Her game was just very melodramatic and at some point unnecessary. Plus, she's also known for wanting to steal someone else's jacket because of the fact that she's cold. I did hear that she brought a jacket with her to season 50. I even said to myself, she better have a jacket so she doesn't try to steal someone else's. But yeah, beyond that, Angelina, I don't know. I feel like she tries too hard. There was one moment where she sat out of an immunity challenge to help the tribe get rice, and she even said she didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And yet, she kept bringing it up. I mean, I think Davey said it best when he said, the whole point of a selfless act is to be selfless. I think if she just didn't bring it up too much, she probably would have been given more credit. Also, the fact that she says she almost died from climbing 100 feet up a ladder to find an idol. Melodramatic much? So yeah, I don't really see Angelina making it far on Survivor 50, but she could surprise me. I've been proven wrong before, and there's a chance I'll be proven wrong during the show. And now we're going to go to the runner-up of David and Goliath. A lot of people know this guy, Mike White. I did not really know Mike until I saw him on Amazing Race. And then I ended up watching a movie of his that he was in called School of Rock with Jack Black. But beyond that, Amazing Race, School of Rock, Survivor, I didn't really watch much of Mike White. I know he's an actor. I know he's a producer. He also does a show called The White Lotus, where he's had plenty of his David and Goliath cast members. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Survivor. Mike, I would say he was the strategic mastermind in David and Goliath. And one of my favorite parts of Mike was when he, Angelina, and Nick were looking for an idol, and Mike's just walking around with his wine glass, and he finds the clue, and he's just they're all idiots. Mike cracked me up during the show. But yeah, I really like Mike, and I hope that he makes it far. I know that given his age, it might be difficult for him, but I've seen plenty of guys in their 50s and girls in their 50s do very well on these shows. So mine can still do very well. And now we're going to go to Season 38, Edge of Extinction, which I mentioned earlier, with Rick Devens. Now, Rick Devens has had quite a game. He was like on a losing tribe. He ended up being the 4th person voted out, eventually winning his way back in the game because of the Edge of Extinction twist. And at that point, he knew that he had to fight his heart out to survive, either by winning immunities or finding idols, because everybody was just out to get him. And every time he tries to work with someone, they either turn on him or they get voted out. Devens eventually met his demise when the other person who came back from Edge of Extinction, Chris Underwood, gave up his immunity and chose to go into fire making against Rick. Chris ended up winning, and Rick was the final member of the jury. That was a tough moment to watch, even though I was rooting for both of those guys. My favorite part about Rick Devens was the part where he would go dun 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 dun, because he's was he like a news reporter? I think. I don't remember what exactly he does, but it's somewhere around that. But yeah, I'm excited to watch Rick Devens, and I can't wait to see him play. And I believe that is all for like the old school and the new school players. And now we're gonna go to the players from the new era. And we're gonna start off with 42 with Jonathan, or as should probably call him, Jonathor, because Jonathan does kind of have a little bit of a resemblance to Chris Hemsworth, and also he's just really good. One moment about him that I think might have gotten him a spot in 50, there was a challenge where the cast was going through the water, and at that point the tides were just terrible. There were waves everywhere. Everybody was struggling. But Jonathan managed to carry his whole tribe through the water and get them to shore. Like, wow. Jonathan was very good at challenges. His social abilities, so-and-so. Some of it was good, some of it was not so good, but I think he makes up for it with his physical prowess. Now, I like Jonathan, and I cannot wait to see him on 50. Do I think he's going to win? No, but we'll see. And now we're going to go to 45. There's 2 people from 45 that are going to go on 50. And we're going to start off with Emily. Now, I was not a fan of Emily. I'm just gonna say it. The first episode of 45, I was rooting for Emily's downfall because of some comments that she was making, like, Survivor's a waste of time if you're not here to win, or if you don't win. And then she just, like, openly calls out other people, like Bruce, and then you got calling out Caleb and Sabaya as being an alliance. And I think if Hannah didn't quit, Emily was probably going to be the one voted out. But I will say, Emily did manage to turn her game around, because she managed to get all the way to the final 7, which is beyond me. But I don't really know what Emily did to be considered for 50. I think it's just because of the fact that she was able to like change her game during the pre-merge, which she took to the merge. So yeah, I don't see Emily going far, but she could surprise me. Now we're going to go to the winner of 45, which is Dee. So Dee found herself in a power alliance with her, Austin, Julie, and Drew, and Dee managed to win a few immunity challenges, and she had her closest allies letting her know certain things of what was going on, like when Austin told Dee that they were going to vote for Julie, and then Julie plays an idol, which Austin gave her, to vote out Emily. But yeah, Dee proved that she had a very good strategic game, and she had a very good social game, and she had a very good physical game, which resulted in her winning over Austin. And just recently, Dee was on the Challenge 41, Vets and New Threats. So to see Dee come back to Survivor 50, also her being a winner, I don't know how she's going to do, because winners do tend to get targeted early. Well, some do, others don't. I do think that Dee could find a way to persuade people that she is not much of a threat, despite the fact that she's a winner. But I could be wrong. And now we're going to go to 46, as there are 3 players from that season. And I believe the first one we're going to go with is Tiffany. Tiffany played quite a game. She managed to find an idol, and she was able to hold on to it until she was voted out with it. I think Tiffany was known for having her Yanu alliance with Q and Kenzie until Q just kind of went AWOL. One thing I did not like about Tiffany was, like, during the final tribal, there were times where the jury was going to give each finalist like a minute to, I guess, talk about their game. And it seemed like Tiffany just kind of shushed Charlie and Ben and allowed Kenzie to have more time, which might have helped her case to win. I don't really know. I don't really know what much to say about Tiffany's game. I mean, I wasn't really a fan of her, so I don't even know how she's going to do in 50. She could do well, she could do bad. I don't know. We'll see. And speaking of people voted out with an idol in their pocket, we're going to go to the next person, which is Q. Now, Q was not a great player, but Q was quite the character. I mean, the Q skirt, for goodness sake, that was awesome. And Q would talk about how the only person that's going home tonight is me. He didn't even get votes that tribal. And anytime someone tries to vote him out, other people got the boot, like Hunter and Tiffany, and I think Venus. Did Venus get voted out before Q? I don't remember. Q managed to find an idol, and he ended up getting voted out with the idol. Q could be seen as kind of like having the same characteristics as Coach, having quite this character persona. One thing I need to mention, he targeted somebody because she said her favorite player was Aubrey. And I think if I remember from looking at the cast photos, Q and Aubrey are going to be on the same tribe. Oh boy, that's going to be something. And now we're going to go to the runner-up of 46, Charlie. I gotta say, I love Charlie. Charlie was known for being a Swiftie, a Taylor Swift fan. But beyond that, Charlie managed to play quite the strategic game, his closest ally being Maria. And I was rooting for those two. And then eventually Maria tried to get Charlie out, which didn't work. And then Charlie managed to get her out. I don't know what happened, but Maria ended up voting for Kenzie over Charlie, and Charlie ended up losing by a close vote. No! Which I'm sure is what everybody wanted. I'm lying. Oh, I really wanted Charlie to win because I thought he played the best game. But, Charlie's coming back to 50. I hope he makes it far. Do I think he can win? I don't know. Like, a lot of these players, I don't know if they're going to win. I'm just being completely honest here. And now we're going to go to 47 with Genevieve. Now, Genevieve, I was not really a fan of hers. Genevieve played the game, like, not really wanting to connect with people. And that was part of her problem. Part of Survivor is having a social game, and having a social game means you have to connect with people. And by the time she realized that, she was kind of in the minority. Do I think Genevieve can win 50? She could. If she focuses more on making connections, then yes, she could. And now we're going to go to 48, where we got 3 players. And we're going to start off with the lowest placer, which I believe is Camilla. Camilla was one of the smartest players in 48, I will say. Camilla managed to help Kyle find his idol. She came up with this plan where Kyle would use his idol, and then Camilla, I believe, gave him her extra vote to take out Thomas. And Kyle and Camilla, they were just kind of like a secret duo. Nobody knew that they were working together. Even when other people wanted to take out Camilla, she ended up surviving. But it wasn't until she got to fire making against Eva where Camilla eventually got eliminated. I don't know how Camilla is gonna do. If she finds herself in a good alliance, I do think she can go very far. And now we're gonna go to the third placer, which is Joe. Now, can I just say, I loved Joe. When I first saw Joe, I thought he was gonna be this big, muscly guy who is very arrogant and doesn't really care about anyone. And boy, was I wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Joe even made me cry 4 times during the show. The first time was with his talk with Eva, where she confided in him about her autism. The second part was when Eva was having one of her episodes and Joe went there to comfort her. Oh my god, my mom and I cried a lot during that scene. And then I cried when he was reading his letters from his kids. And then I cried when he was talking about his sister who had passed. Joe is someone who just has a pure heart in a game that's very cutthroat. I do think if Joe was on like an older season of Survivor, his heart would have been enough to win, but unfortunately, despite the fact that he won 4 challenges, he just couldn't have it in him to win the game. But I am super excited for Joe, and I cannot wait to see him play. And now we're going to go to the winner of Survivor 48, which is Kyle. Now, Kyle did not have the best start. The first episode, he was competing in a challenge against Kevin to win tribe supplies, and at some point, he ended up breaking his like glass jar, which took him out of the challenge. But what I did love about that part is instead of sitting there sulking, he decided to help Kevin finish the challenge so he would get his tribe's supplies. And I thought to myself, I hope that Kyle can get himself out of this hole. And he did. He found himself in a good alliance with Camilla, as I mentioned before, and then he got into a tight alliance with Joe, Eva, and Shaheen, and I think David. Nobody even thought about voting out Kyle after that tribal where Thomas went. And thanks to Camilla pointing out certain parts during Final Tribal, Kyle was able to get the win over Joe and Eva. And even though I mainly wanted Joe or Eva to win, I was also happy that Kyle won because he deserved it. Now, just like Dee, Kyle is a winner going into 50, which could prove to be bad in his case. Camilla even said that she is going to kind of try to distance herself from Kyle, which I don't blame her for. And now the last season we go into is 49, most recent season, with 2 people from that season coming into 50. And I'm going to start off with Rizzo, or as he's also known as, R-I-Z-G-O-D, Rizgod, baby. Now, I will say, I initially was not going to root for Rizzo based on that nickname. However, I watched his video before the season premiered, and he was talking about his brother who has autism, and that really touched me right here in my heart. And as I got to watch him, he was actually funny, and he did play a great game. He found an idol early in the game, and he held on to it until the last time he could play it. And the crazy thing is, everybody knew he had an idol, and they didn't even take the shot to get him out. The one thing that can work against Rizzo is the fact that nobody really saw him play before he went on to 50. Nobody knows how good he did. Nobody knows what he's capable of, which is kind of like those other people who've played back-to-back seasons, like Russell. Nobody knew about Russell's gameplay until it was too late. I do worry for Rizzo that he's going to end up being like targeted very early because of the fact that nobody knows how he did. But I do hope he does well. And now the final person we're going to talk about is the winner of Survivor 49, Savannah. Now, I initially was going to root for Savannah because of the fact that she shares a name with my sister, although the spelling's a little bit different. However, just watching Savannah, she kind of just irritated me, mainly from the way she talks about Juwan. I mean, yes, he used her bag to like collect sticks. Honest mistake. They could just clean that out. No problem. Yes, he accidentally used her water bottle, which is a little bit worse, but still I think it was an honest mistake. But what really irritated me was when she accused Juwan of eavesdropping on her conversation with Soph, when he could have just been tired and decided to lay down and take a nap. Savannah just kind of really irritated me. However, I can acknowledge the fact that she played a really good game. Like, everybody wanted to get her out before the merge even began. She got out of being the vote by winning immunities, using her extra vote, and being able to persuade other people to not vote for her. And because of how impressive she was, Savannah managed to get the votes to win 49. I do think she's going to have a bit of a tougher time than Dee and Kyle because everybody knows Dee and Kyle's gameplay, despite the fact that they won. They didn't know anything about Savannah. That, along with the fact that she won, which I don't know if she's going to tell anybody, but I think people are starting to get the idea that she did. So that's going to be a problem for her. We'll see how she does. Well, that's it for my my view on the Survivor 50 cast. I know this video was very long, but I do hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you guys are excited for 50 as much as I am. So one thing that I do want to put in before I end the video is, if I were to replace any of these players with other players for 50, I think I would probably replace Emily with Jerry, maybe. And then replace Ozzy with, I'd say, Malcolm. But other than that, like, you know, I do think this is a very solid cast. And I'm very excited to watch 50. Also, starting with the first episode, I decided that I'm going to be doing videos where I talk about the episode, kind of like a recap of some type, which I've never done before, and I'm very excited to get that done. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.